My name is Bart Trayor. I'm a clinical psychologist and director and founder of Nurtured Heart Approach Australia, which is located on the Gold Coast in Queensland. I'm a clinical psychologist who focuses on working with really intense kids and families that are struggling to get on. And my mission is to bring the approach to as many families as I can throughout Australia, because it's not something that's been there for a number of years. It was 4 years ago that I came for the first training. And since that time, we've now established a Nurtured Heart Approach Australia Gold Coast, and that's a central hub for the Nurtured Heart Approach in Australia to be based and to grow from. I built a centre that I wanted to be able to do everything that we can out of that. So we've got, I guess, consultation and family support rooms. I've got an observation room because I work with a local university where they've asked me to have psychology students and that come in for their postgrad study. With me bringing the Nurtured Heart Approach to Australia and developing it further, one of the things that I knew had to happen was to get a certification training intensive there. Because otherwise there was a few of us who could go across to America, but it was basically unattainable for most of the population because of the expense that's involved with it. So in 2013, Nurtured Heart Approach Australia worked with the Children's Success Foundation, and we brought Howard Glasser, creating the approach, over for the first ever training on the Gold Coast. And it was fantastic. To be honest, I couldn't have expected the outcome to be better than what it was. I had people who had, these were not 20-year-olds, these were older people that had been years and years of personal and professional development, come up to me at the end of it and say it was the best professional development they have ever been to. Ever. And Howard was incredible. He was raw. He was just so in the moment with them. Having the CTI and having the people that I respected and trusted and knew were experts in their field be able to come up to me at the end and say, we get it. Mate, I can't wait to see what the next 3-4 years has, because it's going to blow you out of the water. I guess one of the things that's really important to me was helping people realise that even though the approach is called the Nurtured Heart Approach, which seems really soft and could be perceived as a little bit fluffy, the approach itself is actually one of the most powerful, strongest, direct, fearless, absolute, resolute things that I've ever come across. There is so many things that appear on the outside to be tougher, create so much, I guess, leeway and murky water for people to be able to dodge rules and move around and just allow for mistakes, really. But what I love about the approach is that it has this ability to allow somebody to be fearless. It allows you, actually, I'll switch that, it's not fearless, it's somebody to be courageous. Because fearless is about not having fear, but you don't work with intense kids and not have fear. But when you've got courage, you do stuff despite the fear. And a lot of stuff that I've been taught in the past and a lot of things I tried to do froze me when I got fear, because I didn't know what to do. The approach gave me stuff to not be fearful. It had me a way of being able to harness the fear that I've got and keep going at these kids and not let them fail. And that's a really cool place to be in. Up until we opened up the Nurtured Heart Approach Australia, the majority of my work was with the adolescent or teenagers, particularly the ones that are quite aggressive and won't present to clinics. So I always tried to look for alternative, more physical activity type interventions and just tried to think outside the box on how I could help them. As a result, I came across the Nurtured Heart Approach and thought it was really important to bring that back to Australia as a way of helping families with those types of kids really have better relationships. When I'm helping people understand what it's about, particularly therapists and social workers and youth workers, who are the ones that are often at the cold face with the families, is realising that when we use a therapy, we often get that feeling that I have to use a therapy with you, and then when I go home, I become a different person and I have to switch off. What I love about the approach is that I can be the same person with the kids as I can with my friends, as I can with my wife, as I can with my kids. So it sort of helps me be a congruent person and just a better version of me when I'm there. And when I don't have to be a different person across all those different roles, it's easier. the way I often tell people when they ask me, what is it? I say, well, can you engage with the kids? And they say, no, they won't let me. And I say, cool, if they won't let you and they won't talk to you, let me teach you an approach that doesn't rely on them having to respond. And when you say that, their faces are like, what do you mean they don't have to respond? Because I need to build a relationship. And I said, yeah, well, let me show you a way you can do it where they don't have to respond, because all you're doing is looking through them and showing them what they've got already. And when you start to do that, all of a sudden their ears prick up. Well, the beauty is you don't need to talk, yeah, because what the approach is about looking into people and seeing who they are in the moment. So I don't really care what you've done in the past. I don't really care what you bring. If it's really important risk-wise, I'll find that out later. But if you're sitting there, it's like, well, what does that tell me about you? You know, the fact is you're making a choice to sit there. You're not getting up. You're not running away. You could have picked up the chair and thrown at me. You know, I've had that happen. So it's like, and when I do that in using previous therapies, it's all about, oh, okay, well, what do I do now then? And as a clinical psych, I ask them to, you know, we look at filling out forms and I need to ask questions. How does that feel? And often the kids go, you know what? And they don't want to answer me. So instead, I look at the moment going, who are you really? Yeah. So underneath all this stuff that's going on in your histories and whatever it is that you bring, when I look at a kid and just say, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you're sitting in the chair, and I appreciate the fact that you're here, because I know you don't have to be. And even if they say, yo, you know what, mum made me, I'm like, yeah, I know. But did she drag you in and did she handcuff you to the chair? No. Well, so you made a choice, because you could have just walked out the moment she brought you in. You know, so even that, all of a sudden somebody's recognizing them for just being here. And I had a young man sit there and didn't say a word. For half an hour, he didn't say a word and he stared at the carpet. And his mum's sitting there just going, oh. And she was, every time she's sitting there, she's looking at him and she's like, oh, I'm really sorry, you know, he always does this, he never talks to anybody. And I'm like, that's all right, it doesn't matter. So I just sat there and just started laying on to him what I thought was great about the fact that he came in. I thanked him for how clear he was about being he didn't want to talk to me. I thanked him for how much self-control he's got at the fact that he can sit there and stare at the carpet for half an hour, because that takes incredible amount of self-control to sit and stare at the carpet and not move your head away. Another example, I had a young fellow who said F off to me and slammed the door when I was in his house. And before I knew the approach, I would have gone, okay, I guess session's over, like I can't do anything now. So what I did was I sat at his door and I just started going on and on and on about what that showed, about the fact that he closed the door. I'm like, thank you so much for putting boundaries around yourself. Thank you for making it really, really clear that you don't want me in your room. I really appreciate that. The approach helps you reset. It helps you not take it personally when people sit there and put resistance in your face. And so I know that that level of calmness, I guess, or control that I was able to use through the skills of the approach really helped me be with that kid, because he was testing me, and that's all he does. You know, and they've had enough and they've shut the door and they want to see, okay, will he walk away like everyone else does? The alternate education and the youth work and those sorts of fields, I know love it. Yeah, the people I work with, they love it. They're foster care, which is an area that's really important to me, and working with child safety, is we've got people being trained. We've now got one of their workers, or one of the people that came to the CTI in Australia, is been with child protection for years and is in there now helping to support the carers, and the door's opening. There is one child from when I was working with kids in care who basically drove me through all this approach. Yeah, it's that one kid that you work with who sends fear down your spine, the one that you're working with who you sit there going, I'm scared and I don't know what to do. And I remember working in the 24-hour youth work model where you sit there and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and the kid's tearing up the house and you literally feel like you need to close the bedroom door and put yourself up against it because you don't know what to do. My search for tools and my search for how to work with these kids always goes back to what would have helped me with him. And if I could wind back that time and learn the approach before I went into him, we can't make guarantees, but I tell you, I would have done a hell of a lot better than what I've done at that time. You know, he did. So it's, yeah, I know the child protection system is just really important to me, because for the staff and the kids, yeah, the staff go into child protection because they care, and then they're given tools that don't work. And then they're told to case manage and they're not meant to use therapy. The beauty of the approach is they don't need to do therapy. You can teach a child protection worker to go in and see a kid and help with supervised contact, to help with an assessment, to do all that stuff, and use the skills of the approach all at the same time, purely to help the kid feel seen. Yeah? And thereby also helping the worker feel like they're actually making a difference instead of everyone hating them, which is what they do. So I guess where I've taken the approach, and the thing that I'm really excited about, is linking nurtured heart approach with physical activity and sport, because it's a natural fit. For me, as you guys would say, it's a no-brainer. It just works. You don't get good in sport by focusing on negative stuff. And you don't get good in sport about not being clear about your boundaries and what you're trying to do. And you don't get clear in sport unless you relentlessly have the intention that you will not fail and that you can do stuff. And that's exactly the same attitudes that we use in the approach. We don't focus on what we've done wrong or the past or the negative stuff. We're very clear about what we need to do. And we are absolute about our belief that we will not let kids fail, and we can do this. Have that same level of fight, the same attitude, the same belief that you will not fail, and give it to your family. Because most of the families that we work with, they're in a battle. They're battling for their kids' lives. They're battling for their marriage. They're battling for themselves. But you forget that. For me, which really stood out is helping people realize that the approach is more than just a parent strategy with an intense kid. The bit that really crystallized and centered home to me that the approach is way more than that was when I was at the Global Summit in Albuquerque. Yeah? I'm into obstacle racing, which is the mud runs, the Tough Mudder, Spartan race, all that sort of stuff. And so I was trying to find a place where I could go and do some training. I found there was a gym in Albuquerque called 0 Point. Right? And 0 Point is a parkour, ninja warrior type training gym. So I went and met Kenny. Kenny changed my life. What was absolutely remarkable is that about halfway through the session, I sat there going, he's using the approach on me. Yeah, he didn't know the approach, he knew nothing about it, and he was using it on me. And I was like, this is amazing. And I looked at all these different gear and equipment that they had, and I'm like, okay, what do I do? And he goes, right, well, I'll set up some obstacles for you to get you going. And I was like, okay, and he set up some obstacles. Were they big ones? No, right? Just little ones for me, and I'm thinking, okay. And I thought, these are too easy, right? But I'm going over them, and he's encouraging me, he's saying how great. He's like, mate, I love the way you're doing this, and you're doing this right, and you're doing this right. And I was like, and then he slowly started to build the obstacles up to make them harder and harder. And I was like, hang on, isn't that what we teach in the approaches to help create success and then raise it up? And then we got to this thing they call the warped wall, right? And the warped wall, for those who don't know, is it's like a quarter pipe skate ramp, 15 foot high. It's on a steepness of about this, and at the top it angles back. I'm standing there looking up at this thing, right? And I'm like, and he's like, right, let's do this. Everyone that comes here wants to do the warp wall because it's the Ninja Warrior finale sort of move. And I was like, yeah, cool. I'd done the other stuff. I was feeling really confident, right? Pretty good. So I sat there and I looked at the wall and I froze. Right? I completely froze. Because the whole time my head is going, uh-oh, I can't do it. I'm going to miss it. I'm going to mess it up. My knees started to hurt. They were like, oh, I'm going to dislocate my knees. I'm going to do this again. I'm going to do this. So I couldn't move. And I tried, and I took 3 steps forward, and then I stopped. And the whole time he was saying nothing. Right? I took a few steps forward and I stopped. A few steps forward and I stopped. And we were there for probably 5 or 10 minutes. Right? And I'm just going, and I kept thinking, I can't stuff this up. I can't stuff this. I'm going to kick myself. I don't know when I'm coming back. This is my only chance. All this stuff, and I was getting more and more upset. Right? And have a guess what he would have said. Yeah? Part of me sitting there going, if it was me, I would have gone, it's okay. It's okay, don't worry, you'll get it next time, you'll be fine. Let's do something else, you'll be okay. Right, the whole time, which is nice and, nice and normal, but would have still made me feel like rubbish. Right, and then I failed it. And instead he's sitting there and he goes, that is awesome. And I'm like, what? And he goes, we just found your first challenge. Yeah, I love it. Let's go and we'll go do something else and we're going to come back and you are going to nail your first challenge. And I was like, yeah, let's go. And we ran off. what really hit home from there is that this is so much more than a strategy with kids. This is the stuff that we do to ourselves, and more importantly, it's stuff that I can bring and use in the sporting world, which is so important. Because for me, sport's a metaphor for the rest of life. It's what we do. We work together, we challenge ourselves, we push boundaries, and we realise who we are inside. That's sort of what the approach does. For me, and it's a belief I've always had, and the approach just amplifies that for me, is that you can look at people that have gone through a lot of really tough stuff as being victims. Yeah? You can look at them and go, wow, you can look at a young person and go, wow, you're only 10 and you've gone through this abuse and you've gone through this and you've gone through this and you've gone through this. And I wish you hadn't gone through that. No. But you know what? They did. And no matter how much of that stuff I focus on, it's not going to help them. So when I'm looking at them with complete certainty and complete honesty, I'm going, you are incredible. You blow my mind. You could have given up all the way along that. But they get down and they get back up. And to me, it's all about getting back up. And when somebody recognizes that, when they see that in them and they go, you know what, I know you've been through that, but you got back up. When they get that, then they know they can keep getting back up. And that's what I do.